English 9, Relative Clauses. What are relative clauses? They are dependent clauses, incomplete thoughts, that add meaning to a sentence. They must be connected to an independent clause, complete thought. They always begin with a relative pronoun. If they are removed, the sentence could still function grammatically. Below is a list of relative pronouns. As you can see, who, whom, and whose refer to a person, which or that, which is not on the list, refers to a thing, and where refers to a place. Who is always used to talk about people. Some examples below. The woman who lives upstairs is a doctor. A dramaturg is someone who helps in the research and development of dramatic texts. We don't know many people who live on a farm. The relative or dependent clause is in green in the sentences above. That or which are always used with things. For example, Karen works for the hospital that is located downtown. The machine, which broke down, is working again now. I don't like movies that have unhappy endings. The relative or dependent clause, again, is in green. What means the thing that. For example, what happened was her fault. Could also be said, the thing that happened was her fault. Do you understand what I mean? Do you understand the thing that I mean? I already knew what the lecture was about. I already knew the thing that the lecture was about. As you can see, what makes the sentence a little bit more fluid. Whose replaces his, her, or their in a relative clause. Each of these are possessive pronouns. For example, a widow is a woman whose husband is dead. Whose refers to her husband. I work with a man whose mother was a famous actress. Whose refers to his mother. We live next to a family whose house was destroyed in the forest fires. Whose refers to their house. Where refers to a place. For example, the office where I work is being remodeled. The university where she studied her undergraduate degree has since shut down. The town where the film was made has had an increase in tourism. There are two types of relative clauses. It is important to distinguish between them because it affects the choice of pronoun used to introduce the clause, as well as the punctuation. We have defining clauses and non-defining clauses. Defining clauses. These tell us which specific person or thing we are talking about in a larger group of people or things. If a defining relative clause is removed, the meaning of the sentence changes significantly. If the clause is removed, we no longer know which specific person or thing we are referring to. For example, the woman who visited me in the hospital was very kind. If you remove who visited me in the hospital, you'll no longer know specifically which woman you're talking about. The umbrella that I bought last week is already broken. The man who stole my backpack has been arrested. The weather that we had this summer was beautiful. Notice that no commas are used when writing a defining clause. Grammar books will tell you that is used instead of which in these types of clauses. Non-defining clauses. These give us more information about the person or thing we are talking about. If a non-defining relative clause is removed from a sentence, we lose some detail, but the overall meaning of the sentence remains the same. For example, the farmer, whose name was Fred, sold us 10 pounds of potatoes. So you can see that if you say, the farmer sold us 10 pounds of potatoes, you still have the main idea of the sentence. Not much information is lost. Elephants, which are the largest land mammals, live in herds of 10 or more adults. The author, who graduated from the same university I did, gave a wonderful presentation. My mother, who is 86, lives in Paris. Notice that non-defining clauses appear between commas. Grammar books will tell you that which is used instead of that in these types of clauses. Including or omitting the relative pronoun. The relative pronoun can only be omitted when it is the object of the clause. You can usually tell when a relative pronoun is the object of the clause because it is followed by another subject and a verb. In the first example below, you cannot omit the relative pronoun, or it does not make sense. The woman that spoke at the meeting was very knowledgeable. The woman spoke at the meeting was very knowledgeable is no longer a complete sentence. But you can omit it in the second sentence. The woman that the man loved was living in New York. The woman the man loved was living in New York. Both sentences make sense. And as you can see, in the second sentence, that is followed by the subject, the man, and a verb, loved. Explore the following links to learn more about relative clauses and to see even more examples.